So here I am to talk about TSH. What is TSH? Thyroid Stimulating Hormone. And is it telling us the whole story? Do we need to be worried about anything else? So here's my cute little, I wish y'all could see my cute little ponytail I have today. That's what I'm going for now. Just get this hair long enough to get it in a ponytail. So want to talk about TSH. So TSH is the thyroid stimulating hormone. Most of us are familiar with it because it's the #1 test ran to diagnose thyroid disorder, whether that's hypo, hyper, pretty much anything when they're testing your thyroid. It is actually not produced by the thyroid. So this is the thyroid stimulating hormone is actually produced by the pituitary gland. It actually helps to regulate your thyroid hormone. And so it's kind of like the opposite effect. So if your TSH is high, that generally means that your thyroid gland is not responding and your thyroid levels are low. So a high TSH usually means hypothyroidism or approaching that. A really low TSH could mean hyperthyroidism, but you'll find out in a little bit that that's not always the case. So we're going to talk more about that. It can get confusing, all these numbers that we're throwing at you all the time. So I always encourage you, if you have been diagnosed with any sort of thyroid disorder or even Hashimoto's, which is what I talk about a lot, it's the autoimmune disease of thyroid, educate yourself on what your lab tests are. Go find out what these words mean, what these acronyms mean. Go find out what normal ranges are. Look up standard lab ranges, look up optimal lab ranges, look up functional med lab ranges, and find out what all the different opinions are so that you can really start to understand the disease process, guys. Education is everything. It's going to help you understand your disease process. It's going to get you more prepared. Knowledge is everything, right? And so when we go into these conversations with our doctor, we can be more prepared to advocate for ourselves so that we benefit, that when we walk away, we feel good. So, so the big question is, and what's most confusing is, what TSH is normal, right? And so typically when you get your labs in, you're going to see what your number is. So they run the lab test. Here's where you fall. And then there's a standard lab range over to the right-hand side that says, this is what's considered normal, okay? And so standard lab ranges for TSH will say most of the time, you'll find some different ones, but standard lab ranges are going to be 0.35 to 5, somewhere in that range, okay? However, there are new studies that show healthy thyroid lab ranges should actually be less than 2.5. So that says the highest end of a TSH to be a healthy thyroid is half of what the standard lab test is telling you. That's big, guys. That's big. And I will tell you from my own experience that this is absolutely true. I've always said I keep track of all my labs. I watch the trends. I try to get labs done at least once a year when I'm actually feeling good, not just whenever I feel like something's off. And you can ask my doctor, it's in my chart. You can ask my HashiGirls that work with me. If you ask them, what is Leigh's optimal TSH value? I can tell you it's pretty much, must be less than 2. Once I get to 2, my hair's falling out. Things aren't right with me, okay? But where I sit best is somewhere between 0.75 and 0.95. That small range, which is on the low end of even the healthy range, the new study, the new optimal range, right? So let's just say I was going by the optimal range of 0.35 to 2.5, and I feel best at 0.75 to 0.95, and mine came out to 2.5, that's too high for me. And no doctor can tell me any different because I know how my body feels. So I encourage you to start to understand, what are you testing? Where do you feel best? Okay? Only you can discover that. Only you can make that decision. And so when you go into a doctor's office and they tell you your lab's in range, but you don't feel good, you need to speak up. You say, I understand I'm within the range. You need to look at where you're at. Typically, we want you into kind of like in the 50%, right? So somewhere in the middle there is usually where the average lies. Keep getting tested, keep adjusting things, keep adjusting lifestyle, supplementation, whatever you need to do until you find a range that you're like, man, I feel great here. And then go get your lab work done. And that's going to give you a lot of information. So standard lab ranges, which are like CPL, LabCorp, places like that are going to tell you the TSH is normal between 0.35 to 5. However, new studies are showing that an actual healthy TSH is 0.35 to 2.5. So you're looking at anything less than 2.5, okay? So write that down. Is that where you're at? If you still don't feel good there, I'd shoot for lower. So here's the thing. Most docs, especially conventional docs, including endocrinologists, only treat the TSH. So the problem with that is that with Hashi's, you can treat your hypothyroidism, you can treat that TSH with medication and still be symptomatic because of the autoimmune aspect of the disease. So if this is you, let's just say you get a high TSH and they put you on medication and you get that TSH in range, and let's just even say it's in the optimal range, it's between 0.35 and 2.5. You can continue to adjust your meds and supplementation until you get that to where you're feeling a little bit better, but sometimes you hit a wall and you're like, okay, medication helped, my TSH looks pretty good, but I still feel off. Some doctors won't mention to you that with Hashi's, it takes out things outside of medication to make you feel better. What does that look like? What is your nutrition? Nutrition is everything. It's what our cells are built on. So if you're eating a bunch of fast food or processed foods, things like that, you're going to have to reevaluate that. I'm not saying that diet has to be perfect, but the majority of your food should be coming from real whole foods, okay? Treats should be treats. A treat isn't a treat if you eat it every day, okay? What does your sleep look like? Are you getting a solid 7 to 9 hours every day? Everybody is different here. Here's what I'm gonna tell you. Most people shouldn't be surviving on less than 7. There are some of us that need closer to 9. Some of us do well with 8, and some of us do well with 7, but rarely do you find anyone that can function and have a healthy body on chronically being sleep deprived at less than 7 hours. So how is your sleep? Are you putting focus there? Are you taking away electronics before bed? Are you having quiet time? Do you have a consistent bedtime and wake up time? Are you reading at night? Are you taking supplementation? Are you dimming down the lights? Is your air between around 65 to 67 degrees? That's where we sleep the best. So we're putting priority on sleep. We're bringing awareness around stress. I can give you the perfect diet. I can give you the perfect amount of medication. But if you are in a chronic state of stress, it will do nothing for you. So I encourage you need to address the stress. Is your movement helping you or hindering you? Do you sit at a desk all day and then not move the rest of the day? I would encourage you to start with steps, with yoga, some sort of movement. Or are you a CrossFit person or a weightlifter and you're overtraining to where it's creating even more stress on your body? It's all about balance, guys. So are you moving in a way that benefits your body? These are all things that you should be thinking about outside of just treating a TSH. Take into consideration as well, so just another point, and we kind of touched on this, that your ideal TSH may be on the other end of the normal spectrum. So if the healthy TSH range is 0.35 to 2.5, and you're coming in at 2.5 and you don't feel good, maybe your normal is 0.35, 0.55, somewhere over there. So that's almost 2.5 times more where you're testing at. And so that's the conversation you can have with your doctor is, doc, hey, I'm coming up at the high end of normal here. And I don't feel good. So maybe mine needs to be lower. Can we test out taking a little bit more thyroid medication to see if I feel better at the lower end? Maybe you're at the lower end and you don't feel good there. So you can maybe adjust your meds a little bit, come off of some meds a little bit to see if you function better closer to 2. These are things, these are arguments, not a negative argument. These are, but that you can take to your doctor and say, hey, can we see if we can adjust the meds within this range to see where my body feels the best? Because that's all that matters. It's how you feel, not what some group that they tested to get to these ranges felt. And you may need to have other thyroid issues addressed. So are they running a full thyroid panel? Do you know what your reverse T3 is? So many people don't even know that exists, okay? Your free T3, your total T3, your free T4. Do you know what those things look like? Your reverse T3 is a direct indicator of inflammation in the body. And so many of us HashiGirls have so much inflammation. And so if you haven't gotten that tested, test it. You may need to move your emphasis to inflammation. You've got your thyroid numbers in check, but maybe it's inflammation that's causing you to feel bad. What is your T4 and T3, your free T4, free T3 numbers? Or your T4 numbers in check, but you don't have ideal T3 numbers? Maybe you have a conversion issue. There are supplements you can take that will help with that conversion. Maybe we need to address gut health. Sometimes our gut health is compromised and therefore our body is not converting appropriately or even absorbing the medication appropriately that we're putting into our bodies. And are we not treating the AI side? So just like I said earlier, sometimes, most of the time, we have to treat the autoimmune side of Hashimoto's. And many doctors don't recognize that. They're not educated on it. And they don't keep up with the research. They don't, I hear over and over again that there's no studies to show that taking gluten out of your diet impacts HashiGirls. Well, I work with a lot of HashiGirls, and almost every one of them is impacted by removing gluten. It doesn't mean that you had a positive food allergy test or anything like that. It's causing an underlying inflammation. You remove it from your diet. It allows your gut to heal. The inflammation goes down. Your body starts to function as it should. And so you have to keep an eye on things outside of just taking the medication. And one of the other things I want to talk about too, before I forget, is when you're treating the AI side, I talked about nutrition, I talked about sleep and stress and all that. Hydration. I just listened to a podcast today, guys. It's really great. And it was just talking about how important hydration is just in the prevention of like COVID-19. And I worked in a hospital for 20 years, and so many times I would see people come in with different ailments, different viruses, pneumonia, flu, all of that. And it wasn't those things that got them admitted to the hospital. It's the fact that they were dehydrated, that their body couldn't function appropriately to get them into a recovery or healing state. So hydration is super important just to get our body to function normally. So if we have autoimmune disease and we're chronically dehydrated, how do we expect our body to do what it needs to do? So something as simple as just drinking water, I always tell people start with half your body weight in ounces, can be life-changing for you. It's simple, guys. Go get you a new water bottle. I love this Stanley, but it's always out of stock, but they're supposed to have new colors soon. Go get you a new water bottle, make it enjoyable. Start a water challenge. Just get hydrated and reach out to me and let me know how you feel. 7 days of drinking that much water, you're going to see a difference. Okay. And then the last thing I want to talk about is that a low TSH, if being treated with meds, you have a low TSH, like I'm talking like 0.1, 0.2, and your doctor shows concern, could actually be okay as long as you're being treated with medication to get it there. And it doesn't guarantee that you're actually in a hyperthyroid state. So remember, a low TSH sometimes correlates with hyperthyroidism. But if you have that low TSH because you're being treated with thyroid medication, that can actually be okay. So if you're not symptomatic of being hyper, it's okay to stay there if that's where you feel good on medication. Okay, so it's kind of different than the other way around. So I have a lot of people that come to me that say, when I started taking the medication, my TSH is coming back really low, and my doctor doesn't like the way that looks, but I feel really good. Well, I just read an entire blog article by Dr. Weston Childs. He's got some research studies attached to it that tell us that a low TSH, if being treated with medication, thyroid medication, it's actually okay and does not guarantee that you are in a hyper state. So if that is you, you can go to his website, restartmd.com, I believe it's Dr. Weston Childs. Find this article and take it to your doctor. Sometimes these doctors are busy. They don't keep up with the latest and greatest. Take this article, show them what other doctors are talking about, show them some studies, and give them the resource in their hand to educate them. There's ways to do it without being an a-hole, right? Or making them feel like they're not competent or whatever. But sometimes we just need to take the research to them. So these are all of the things of what is TSH? Is it telling you the whole story? No. How do we work around that? How do we talk to our doctor about it? So if this is you and you resonate with this, give me a shout out in the comments below. Let me know if you have further questions. Let us know if we can help you. Let us know if you've had this conversation with your doctor. Again, we come here with topics that we see in the group, hoping that it's going to help stimulate further discussion to get you on your healing journey. So I appreciate guys being here. I appreciate y'all being patient with this week. Last week was just a really weird week for me. And so as always, y'all extend grace, and I appreciate that. I am just really glad to be here, surrounded by such great, great women. Y'all have a good evening, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.